So today I am going to be sharing Dina's case study, and she is a fantastic woman, a full-time solicitor, a mum of two, and what she was really battling with was constant burnout with work. What had happened is she'd piled on the weight. She was always putting her work first, always putting her kids first, and then she was putting herself last. And then she got to a point where she was just feeling really awful in her body, not feeling confident, not feeling comfortable, and she hated the thought of having to wear the same baggy black clothes every single day and just the same work trousers and clothes to work, and then when she was at home she would be very easily swayed from her body to wear joggers. So this is what I want to share with you, and hopefully, as well as you know, my name is Dr. Cheetah Davda. So I'm a women's online health coach specializing in PCOS, hormones and fertility. So if you're a woman, you have got hormones, and they will go up and down throughout your life. They will get balanced, imbalanced, they'll go crazy, and that's why it's really important to work with someone that knows hormones pretty much inside out. Within our team, we have other coaches, we have GPs, nutritionists, personal trainers, clinical psychologists, behavior change coach, personal stylists, chefs. We have got you covered, and I've personally coached over 500 ladies in order to lose weight, either get pregnant, manage hormones, feel empowered, and basically just feel the best version of themselves. So as you know, my background is that I'm a dentist, then became a personal trainer, pre and postnatal qualified as well, also a sleep certified coach, and then went through various education of learning to coach, working with medical mentors, learning about hormones, and basically I have a keen passion just to help as many women as possible just to feel amazing. I've gone through my journey, and I want to help you go through your journey using our freedom formula. So first of all, if we meet Dina, she's in her late 30s, married with 2 children, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying the kids can be quite challenging at times. And as we know, if you're a mum, it's always quite up and down because they are constantly on school holidays. It's either Easter, it's half term, it's Christmas, and it's hard, especially when you're working full time as a mum. So Dina is a solicitor working in London, so she was working from home 2 days a week, working in the office 3 days a week. Also working in the office came lots of work socials, so in the evenings there would be work social events, and not just going out with colleagues, it'd actually be more going out with clients, and there'd be certain corporate events that she had to attend. So what was happening is that she was skipping meals, she was too busy to have breakfast, she was too busy to have lunch, then she'd just get really hungry or she'd get really tired, so she'd start relying on carbs, sugary snacks, and then she was also like an emotional eater. So what happened is when something went bad at work or when she was really stressed, she would just reach for the chocolates, reach for the crisps, reach for the biscuits, and also the weekends were super busy, but they were really unstructured. So they'd go to bed at different times, they'd wake up at different times, the kids had activities, parties, you name it. So Dina had to also probably be their taxi driver, but also she liked socializing with her own friends, going out with the school mums. And it's funny because that's how she actually heard about me. She was out on a night out with some school mums, and I was actually working with. I was working with probably around 5 out of 7 of them, so she was the 6th one. She was intrigued, so she wanted to know how her friends were looking so amazing, also being so busy, also having kids, and that's how we got in touch. So she slowly learned this is not just a meal plan, this is not just a workout plan. If anything, she thought she had to work out to get her progress. I proved her wrong on that. And what we kind of wanted to do as well was actually really dig deep into what were Dina's real struggles, like where did it stem from? Why was she always prioritizing work? Why was she skipping meals? Why was she putting her clients first? And what we actually kind of boiled down to, it was linked to like her self-worth of what she thought of herself, but also just in terms of what she felt she valued. And a lot of the time she'd go out socially, ending up drinking a lot with friends, and it was more just because she was trying to escape her job because it was so stressful. She was literally working till midnight, 1 in the morning, with really tight deadlines, not getting much support from her work or from her manager. And then it meant that she was also working so much that she would just let herself go, and she just didn't recognize herself anymore. And whilst we worked together, she was still able to enjoy 4 amazing holidays. One was an all-inclusive in the Maldives, and it was just really amazing just to kind of see that even through all of this, we were still coaching her through it and then making sure that she was still seeing progress, but also enjoying herself. So at the end, she ended up losing a good amount of weight, but the main thing is that she wanted to do it sustainably, and that matches how we coach. And then she also never wanted to put it back on again. She had done various things in the past where she had yo-yoed, lost weight, put on weight, and this time she actually wanted to do it once and for all. She also wanted to feel a lot more energized, and she also just wanted to kind of stop having those constant cravings. She wanted to stop emotionally eating, and she just wanted to be consistent. She didn't want to rely on motivation, and she just wanted something that worked around her and her lifestyle. So what we did actually from the start was just to kind of focus on her food. The way we coach, as you know, is food is going to be 80% of your foundations. We do not restrict any food. We encourage eating out. Socializing is part of life. And we basically have our 3-2-3 approach. So making sure we're aiming for 3 meals, 2 snacks, and even 3 meals out a week. And we made sure that we were kind of planning everything well, so she never felt deprived and that she never felt restricted. So instead of binge eating, a whole sharing box of Maltesers, we actually added in the chocolates, knowing what days of the week were her most stressful. And then we also had to make sure that she didn't cut out any food groups. As she was super social, we made sure that we worked on eating out on the weekends, planning menus together, and adding in the odd drink when needed. But actually, from working together, she realized that the reason for the drinking was to escape her stressful work life. And then once we kind of started working on her values and started working on her, then that made the biggest difference. And obviously, the more changes she saw in her body, the more confident she felt. That really spurred her on. So instead of starting again every Monday, going off track on the weekend, we made sure we built a good routine. We made sure we had the education behind how we want to approach things. And we just actually made that mindset shift. So there wasn't any dieting. She didn't feel restricted. So it meant she didn't have to overindulge on the weekends. And we also actually worked on peer pressure and learning how to eat out with friends, because a lot of the time, if friends are used to us drinking like 3 or 4 bottles of wine or something like that, and then we're seeing we're just having 1 glass of wine, friends will get confused, and then often we can kind of feel like we need to do the same of what we used to do. But actually what we did was we worked together on kind of setting our new identity, setting the boundaries, and true friends and true family will always respect that. So we made sure we worked on that whole all or nothing approach, and we just made sure they were sustainable habits that she could keep for life. We also kind of challenged limiting beliefs, because what she thought was that she had to exercise all the time to lose weight. That's what she'd done before, and she was really struggling to find time on her side. So all we did was actually focus on her steps, and we focused on her food. And she was really struggling to get a decent amount of steps in, because when she was working from home, she was literally head down in her laptop. I wouldn't hear from her the whole day. She wasn't someone who said that work was really busy and then she'd be messaging me all the time. Work was truly busy, and if she wasn't working, she was looking after the kids. So I'd get a message at the end of each day, a nice summary of how things were going. If it wasn't every day, she knew that I was always there. She could always reach out. And then she'd always let me know what was going on at work, how things were going with her manager, what stress that was causing on her, and then what foods she was then going for. We then got a good plan of action in place of when she feels like that, what to do. So we had the right tools, we had the right techniques, and then just making sure we were working on it step by step. We made sure it wasn't overwhelming. I didn't expect her to implement it straight away, but we were just adding in really, really small things every couple of weeks, and then that made the biggest difference. What that meant was, instead of trying to do everything at once and then getting nowhere, we were drip feeding the tactics, we were drip feeding the information, and we were also reframing her thought process. So instead of thinking of this as like losing weight and then being affected by the scales, we were making sure she was prioritizing her health. And that's why we always get like a baseline of blood test results, because especially with a high, stressful, demanding job, if you have got anything borderline, that is a disaster waiting to happen. So we need to make sure that everything is optimal and we're eating the right foods in order to do that, but we're also being active. Being busy doesn't cut it when it comes down to getting results, and putting your work first and putting yourself last isn't going to get you what you want, because a lot of the time we want to get somewhere, but we're not willing to make that sacrifice. So this is when the coaching comes in. It's not just accountability, it is coaching. So it's learning about, why do you feel like that? Where has that come from? And then how can we make that change to make sure you're prioritizing yourself, you're feeling good in yourself. And if your kids are so important to you and you want to live the healthiest, longest life to be with them, why are we getting stressed at work and not eating and skipping food and not walking? Because that is going to reduce your lifespan. So what we started to do was have little tactics in the day of how for her to get her steps in and to make sure she got them in. So she knew she had to kind of report back to me, and she felt so much better for it. And there were the odd weeks where she did feel like working out. We had them ready in the background. They were short and sweet. They were 20 minutes. She sometimes just needed it as a stress reliever. But I'll be honest, in her whole journey, she probably only did 6 workouts, and 2 of them were on holiday, because she said when she was on holiday, she had a lot more time for herself and she wanted to work out. But actually she realized it wasn't needed. So she wanted to learn about it, to learn to enjoy it, but she didn't want that to be as part of her lifestyle. So we made sure we built the long-term habits, overcoming peer pressure, not finishing food on her plate, and then just building that self-awareness, but also building her confidence to make sure that she could handle these challenges without falling back into old habits. So if we think about what we've achieved physically, you can see the biggest change in terms of her waist measurement. As we know, when body fat piles on around the stomach area, we are at higher risk of developing things like diabetes, cholesterol, things like that. So we could really see that waist had trimmed away, body fat had come down. These shorts were falling off and she was basically having to hold them up. So what we did was we learned how to basically eat out on weekends without undoing her hard work. And I remember when she started on her first week, she had 3 work socials and 2 meals out with friends, and we still made sure it worked. So we planned everything well. She also loved entertaining and hosting. So every month or so, she'd always have friends over, would make sure that she ran by the menu of what she was making. And she was also prone to kind of snacking when she had people over. So we had a good plan in place. We also built a routine that worked for her lifestyle. So working from home days, office days, we made sure we got the steps in, but we also got those meals in at the right times. Yes, there were odd days where she did end up skipping lunch, and then she realized, or her body reminded her, why that wasn't good for her. And then we also worked on the emotional eating. So if there was a really, really bad day at work, if the line manager had just been awful, if there were clients that had been really demanding and she really struggled with it, we made sure we had that plan in place. And then she also just learned to enjoy food guilt-free. When she'd done this before, she was cutting out food groups and then she'd end up binging on it. So yes, we didn't have things every single day, but we made sure it worked. And on the days she was in the office, we made sure she was able to kind of eat the foods that were around there, so she didn't have to worry about making the food. And then when she was at home, we made sure she just had really quick meals that she could just make while she could then carry on working. And then we made sure she sat and she mindfully ate. She didn't work in front of her laptop because that can obviously cause issues. She made sure that she took that breather and she took that rest. And she didn't let the scale weight define her. A lot of the time, the scale weight was going up, but body fat was coming down. And that's why it's so important to know scale weight and body fat are 2 different things. So if we're chasing body fat coming down, that is going to be from your photos and how your clothes fit. If you're obsessed with the scales, you go ahead and be obsessed with the scales. There are ways you can get that down, but you're not going to be healthy and you're not going to be toned and you're not going to look confident. So we want to make sure we detach any emotion, and then obviously she feels amazing. So you've seen her front profile, you've seen her side profile, you've also seen the back. So you can see body fat has come away here. So now when she wears Indian outfits, she doesn't need to worry about her blouses. Look at that muscle tone there. And if we wanted to kind of get more tone, yes, workouts did need to be a priority, but she just wanted to look good and feel good in her clothes, and she wanted to feel great on the beach in Maldives after having her 2 kids. So they were age 6 and 8, and as we know, she was not able to kind of have as much fun with them on previous holidays because she'd always be covered up. She never wanted to go in the pool with them, and this time they were ecstatic. I loved actually seeing her photos where they were all just having ice cream on the beach together. They were just all having fun, and it just made me feel so happy. So before, she was feeling stuck, she was feeling frustrated, she'd tried diets that never worked, she was battling emotional eating, and then after, she felt control in her body, confident in her choices, improved energy, and a routine that just fit her lifestyle. So amongst all the other school mums that I'd worked with, she was the next one that was looking good and feeling good and having a great time, and hopefully singing my praises when they all went out for dinner. So what we need to kind of think about is, if we look at the scale number, you think, oh, 11.5 kilos in 10 months. But what you want to do is think about like the ups and downs. So this is why we had to detach any emotion from the scale. There were days where the scale weight was coming down, up, but as long as it was coming down, that's what we wanted. And then what was really interesting is she had a trip coming up, as I said, the all-inclusive. So this one, I'd given her two options. I said, if you feel you're confident enough to do it alone, do it. I'm not going to intervene. I'm not going to give you any guidance. I'm not going to interrupt you. Let's see how you get on. Or if you want me here and you want me to hold you accountable, let me know how your food's going. Let me know how everything's going, and I'll keep touching base. So because she thought, actually, I want to learn to maintain, she decided to go it alone, and then it's absolutely fine. But she just realized, actually, I may have needed that accountability to then know how to kind of manage everything long run. So we always kind of learn from our mistakes. It's never I told you so moment, but it's nice to kind of learn about these things. But what was really interesting is even though weight went up, her photos were only bloated, and then you'll see everything kind of came back down nicely. So then here you can see we maintained, and that was really important because, as you can see, the journey had been very up and down. But when we're maintaining, we're never food tracking, we're not actually even hitting targets. We're basically just living life and making sure we know how to do this without having to track or weigh food or anything like that. So we're eyeballing things, we've got an awareness, we've got that education, we've been taught well, but we've also rewired our mindset. So we've not done anything drastic, we have not done anything quick, but we've made sure it works and we've made sure we got to the bottom of it. And then we also lost over 14 centimeters around the waist. And again, as I said, this means that it's never coming back again. So it's making sure that we've done it once, we've done it well, and it shouldn't really matter how long it takes, because I'd rather we do it properly and we do it well once, versus if I saw something like this and then someone has to come back to me a few months later because they've got back to there, I would be gutted and you'd be gutted too. So that's why we slow and steady wins the race, and it means we win the race forever. So it was really important to know that. And food was pretty normal. Like, these are meals from going out, as you can see. And she felt amazing. She got back into clothes that she had not worn since pre-pregnancy. She'd even got into her engagement outfit, which was amazing. And she just looked so confident. So this was from like a date night with her husband. This is on a girls' trip to Ibiza that she really enjoyed. And it just shows that all of this is part of your journey. It's learning how to do this well and not kind of giving in when it gets tough. It's really easy if we see the scale weight go up a bit or we think this is really hard, we can give up. But what you need to remember is, with this style of coaching, it's made around you. So yes, Dina had days where steps were really, really low. She had days where, things weren't perfect, but we made sure we worked on that. And then we made sure we had more good days than bad days. So we also made sure we focused on water. We were slowly increasing steps, but nothing crazy. And on the weekends, if she was more active, we took that as a win. And then just making sure that we kind of had supplements in place as well. And just habit tracking, because that's so important. So here it shows we're never expecting perfection, but we're just expecting progress week on week. And as you can see, it was just making sure that she never had to start over again. And it was just making sure that she never fell back into old habits. So that's why with a journey, when it's a really, really good amount of time, we know we've made this a lifestyle. When you don't need someone reminding you about water, reminding you about steps, you're now in your autopilot, and you're also never going to go back, because when you feel amazing in your clothes and you look good, but you also know the reason and the approach that was taken to get you to your goal, that is going to be the biggest game changer. And it's also making sure we're working on consistency over perfection. As I mentioned, it's easy to have maybe 1 or 2 days that feel perfect, but they are pointless if we're not consistent throughout your journey. And it's making sure that you're actually reflecting, you're using the tools, and you're working on your mindset, and making sure we never have to yo-yo again. So even when work was stressful and like time really wasn't on her side, I would still kind of ask some challenging questions, and she would still put the time aside to get back to me. And if it meant it was when like her son was playing football and then she was like just getting her steps in, walking around, she'd be thinking about the questions that I would have given her, and then she would get back to me on them. So it's really important to know we worked collaboratively as a team together. it wasn't like dictative of like me saying you do this, and then she'd be like, I can't do it, and then I'd be like, you don't want it enough. It was, okay, what can we do? What targets can we hit? How can I push you? And then I would then see what the typical routine was. I would see what the trend was, and then I'd push her in different ways. And when we kind of think about our coaching, it's based on like our food, our steps, our water, and workouts if they're needed. But ultimately, it's all to do with our mindset. If we can control our mind, then we are sorted. So I'm sure Dina won't mind me sharing. When she started, she was like, I'm going to cut out all sugar and I'm going to cut out all alcohol. I was like, great, that's not going to work. So what I said is, I don't want us cutting anything out. I want whatever we're doing on day one, I want to make sure in a year from now, you're still doing the same thing. So it took a while for her to kind of believe me and for her to not trust me, because obviously all of her friends were looking amazing from working with me. But I think it just took a while for her to get used to a different approach, because other things that she had used were strict calorie deficits. You can't eat out, you've got to exercise. And I was basically saying, you can eat out, you don't need to exercise, and you're not on a strict calorie deficit, because we're making it all like on the foods you're eating, making sure you're feeling full, making sure you're enjoying your food, and making sure that you can eat the same food as your family and the kids. Because kids will pick up if you're eating a different meal, they'll wonder, well, what's wrong with my food? So what we always want to make sure is that everyone's on page. And also she did have to have some tough conversations with her husband, because often there were times where she kind of wanted to make sure she felt more supported, and even though he was on track, he would often kind of bring out the box of biscuits or the box of Maltesers and be like, oh, shall we have this together? And obviously when you're really exhausted and you feel like your willpower's gone, it's easy to give in, and then it's easy to feel guilty afterwards. So we did have like a few supportive conversations that we made sure that everyone was on the same page. Everyone also wanted the same end result. I just wanted her to feel amazing, to feel great in her clothes. Her husband wanted her to feel happy, to make sure they can enjoy date nights without her stressing about what to wear or nothing fits. And she also wanted to prioritize her health, because sadly, we hear it more and more. There are younger people who are passing away, younger people with children, and she really actually wanted to prioritize her health. And what's been really amazing is once she started valuing herself, she's actually changed firms with her work, because she realized she wasn't being treated with respect and she wasn't being paid well for the work that she was doing. So again, that was from working together. And she said it actually really helped her realize of what you can achieve, but also made her value herself more. And now she loves life. So win-win situation there. Super proud of her. And main thing is that she's maintaining, which is so important. And then hopefully it's just really nice just to be able to kind of see in her own words just some of her amazing wins as well. So that white dress that I showed, she last wore that in 2016. So it was nice that she, number one, kept the dress, but she was able to fit into it. And also as well, she never wanted it to feel like she was doing things to impress me, but it was done at her pace and it was done for her lifestyle. So that's what made a difference. And knowing that there's never any judgment from me, I'm never going to be upset or angry if something doesn't go to plan. I'll just be curious and be like, okay, cool, let's work on it. Let's figure it out. No one's going to be perfect. And what's been great as well is just making sure she was fitting back into clothes that she hadn't worn in a very long time. And even with Christmas, we made sure that nothing went wrong over that. Stomach was feeling flatter. Everyone's giving her lots of compliments. She's feeling happier in her body. She's in great shape. She's way more confident. And it's just so nice just to hear these amazing words. But as a coach, just feeling so proud, but also so happy in order, or fulfilled, I guess is a better word, knowing that we could change lives in such a positive way. So just wanted to share this story. Sorry it's a bit longer than anticipated, but as you know, I'm just very passionate about what I do. Love sharing everyone's progress as well, and you always know as well, when your bra's getting too big or underwear's getting too big, body fat is definitely coming down. So hopefully a bit of inspiration. She'll be hitting her 40th soon, looking and feeling great. Her kids are super proud of her, her husband's proud of her, I'm super proud of her as well. And it's just amazing what we can achieve, but we never want to think of it as a race. We never want to compare to others, and I never want this case study to be a comparison to your journey, but is more just bringing awareness of everyone's journeys are different, but ultimately as long as we get there at the the end. That's the main thing. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but as long as we're doing it the right way and you're keeping your results long term, that's all that matters. So yeah, hopefully you found this informative and also really enjoyed watching it as well.